one of the easiest ways to control you is to make you afraid of losing something that you were taught your whole life to want. And what do I mean by that? Well, it could be your career, it could be the house, the relationship, right? The status that comes with making a certain amount of money and looking a certain way and people perceiving you in a certain light, right? As long as you desperately want those things, they give other people leverage over you, right? But then one day, one fateful day, you start looking at those things differently. You start looking at the deal, right? You may still want some of those things, yeah, sure, but you aren't willing to sacrifice your entire life to get them. And what that does is that changes the whole deal. It changes the arrangement because other people's judgment of you, it doesn't carry the same weight. So their approval does not run your life any longer. And I think more of you are getting to that point. Because you're looking at this deal, this crummy deal that you were handed, and you're wondering, dude, why have I spent so much time chasing these things that don't seem to actually make me happy when I finally get them? Most control in modern society, it works through incentives, right? Nobody has to physically force you to work 60 hours a week if you believe that your worth depends solely on how successful your career looks, right? And yeah, just like everyone else, like me, like we've grew up with this version of the whole go to school, get some credential, get a decent job, work your way up, yada yada yada, get the whole house, the family, the whole nine, and then eventually you save up for retirement, and then eventually by the time you're old and feeble at 65, then you have enough freedom to finally enjoy your life. I've always rejected that. I've never thought that was appealing. But for a long time, that sounded like a reasonable deal for a lot of men. But just think about it. You can work for years, right? You can work for a decade, 2 decades, and you can become what you think is irreplaceable at your job, right? You can become very valuable in your position, and you can still get laid off, right? Just because somebody that's 3 levels above you, they need the numbers to look better next quarter. So later, Stuart, you're gone, right? After 20 years, just a freaking pink slip and then a foot on the ass. So just even when you make responsible financial decisions, right? The cost of a normal middle class life, it can feel like it just keeps moving further and further away, which I think that's all of us, because the middle class, I think, is pretty much dead at this point, right? So it's kind of the haves or have-nots. We're just in this neo-feudalism at this point. But if you think about it, there's always somebody telling you how you're supposed to behave, especially as a man, right? You are told how confident you should be, how vulnerable you need to become, what healthy masculinity is supposed to look like, and that keeps changing. So, but yeah, after enough times of adjusting yourself and recalibrating around everybody else's expectations, yeah, you eventually have to wonder, well, dude, how much of my life actually came from me, right? How much of my life is authentically me? And when men get to that point, I think that's where the leverage starts to disappear, right? And it's harder for them to be controlled, because you become way harder to push around once you come to the realization that some of the things that you were terrified of losing, well, they never mattered to you as much as you thought they did, right? Maybe you realize, oh, well, that's just programming. And you're able to shake that programming, and you're no longer in that spell that they had you under, right? But yeah, I mean, sometimes the thing keeping you stuck is obvious. Like, yeah, your job, like maybe you hate your job, but your entire lifestyle, it depends on that paycheck, right? So leaving feels impossible. You stay for years and years and years so you can maintain your lifestyle, right? You can keep your Beamer or whatever the frick. Or even like a relationship. You can be in a relationship where you're just walking on eggshells. You're just trying to keep the peace with the other person, right? With your wife or your girlfriend, because if you say certain things, and then that's gonna cause problems. And so you kind of feel like a prisoner in your own home. And what makes this hard to recognize is that your life, it can still look completely normal from the outside, right? For other people, right? Because you're still doing what you need to do you're handling all the responsibilities and somehow making it through another day. And everybody around you just assumes that you're fine just because you're functional, right? You look functional, Derek. You look functional. And even you can get so used to going through the motions that even you stop asking whether you actually like the life that you're maintaining, right? That you're doing all of this for. But yeah, I think at some point the question becomes pretty simple. How much of this do you actually want, right? How much of it do you actually want? Have you asked yourself that question at all? I mean, status it's a pretty easy example, right? If you genuinely don't give a rat's ass what strangers think about your car, you're not looking to impress them, then it's much harder to convince you for a corporation to get you to buy an $80,000 vehicle, right? To look a certain way, to look successful. So, because yeah, maybe you'd rather have something cheaper because you want less debt and more money left over every month, right? That's the thing is once impressing other people stops being your goal, stops being your focus, their definition of success becomes much less relevant. So, and the same thing happens with work, right? Because yeah, I mean, yeah, like losing your job, it sucks. That still matters because you got bills to pay. But your employer, they have way more leverage over you when your job title is also your identity. And that is for a lot of men. Their job title is them. It is their identity. When they lose their job, it's like a death to them. Same with like social approval. That's kind of in line with social approval, right? Because if you're one of those suckers that needs everyone to like you, then you'll just tolerate pretty much anything because you're afraid of being judged, right? You got no backbone. You lose your backbone, and then you hide what you really think, and you stay quiet, and you'd rather not speak up when you probably should, just because you're afraid of whatever label that they might slap on you that happens to bother you. So eventually you can just reach a point where somebody disliking you just doesn't matter. You don't give a shit. It's not even a blip on your radar, right? You're still capable of listening when somebody has a legitimate criticism. Yeah. But every negative opinion about you, it doesn't require a response, right? If it's not true, then just ignore it, right? That frees up a surprisingly amount of energy and sanity. So, but it also gets into something deeper because you can be surrounded by people and you can still feel completely alone. Reason being, it's because nobody really knows you. You don't feel known by any of them, right? So, and that wears you down because you're always, I don't know. You're not in a good mental place, right? And it's just, I think a lot of men, they're also just tired of spending so much energy just managing everybody else's perceptions of them, right? But yeah, I get it. You still need basic social skills, and I get that you can't just walk through life saying whatever pops through your head. And I mean, you still have to be around people and do this and that or whatever. But I think also that there's another problem that's important to highlight here. And it comes when when getting along with people slowly turns into becoming somebody that you don't recognize, right? I think that happens to a lot of men. They're just like, I don't even know who I am anymore because I wear so many masks, right? They haven't gone through the process of individuation. But then there's a danger on the other side of this too. Because also once you start getting to that position where you're questioning things, like your career and status, relationship expectations, all that stuff, everything that you were told would make you happy, it gets very easy to then overcorrect and decide that none of it matters at all, right? You can get really nihilistic, and I think that becomes another trap, right? Because then when that happens, you pull away from people and you spend more time on screens, right? On your phone, on the TV, whatever, on the computer, and then eventually something else starts capturing your attention, right, and controlling your attention. It could be just endless doom scrolling, or being pissed off at everything you see online. Everything rage baits you, right? So you're rejecting one set of incentives um, for another. You're not being controlled by one, but then you're being controlled by another. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, you still need something worth caring about. Yeah, the difference is that you have to choose it, right? And so I think, like, for myself, it's choosing to be a good father, right? Or it could be building something that you actually care about. Like my channel, like, this is something that I care about. I decided to do this. I decided to pour myself into this. Um, but yeah, for you, it could be, I mean, your version of a good life might be just fairly simple, right? You just want a quiet home. You want a few people in your life, just a few friends, a few close friends that you can trust, and you just want to make enough money just to be comfortable, right? Um, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, to have a simple life like that. But I mean, you still need direction, though, because walking away from somebody else's definition of success, it doesn't automatically give you your own definition. So, and that's one of the many reasons why I wrote my ebook, a dark mode protocol, um, because that book, it's about individuation. Essentially, it's about shedding those masks and recognizing where the outside pressure has been running your life, right? Figuring out what you actually value and becoming harder to control through fear and through approval and status and all the other things that you've been taught to chase, right? So yeah, I mean, if what I'm talking about here, it sounds familiar and it sounds like you're going through it, you align with it, you resonate with it, then, well, I'll go ahead and just drop the link down below to get my book. Freaking read it, dude. It's only 32 pages. I've sold a lot of copies. I've sold hundreds of copies, and it's helped a lot of men. So, but yeah, once you recognize where the leverage is coming from, then you can start to reduce it, right? And I think money is a big part of that, because the less expensive that your life is to maintain, the more room you have to make decisions that are based on what is actually good for you, what's actually in your best interests, right? And also even having just useful skills, like adding to your resume, man. Just in case your job disappears for whatever reason, or you want to do something else, right? Um, but I think the bigger issue here is knowing what enough looks like. What does enough look like for you? I think if you decide what enough is, then you're in a good spot. But if you never decide what enough is for you, then somebody can always convince you that you need more, right? Then you aren't enough. That isn't enough, right? Because yeah, you can make more money, and then suddenly your current lifestyle doesn't seem good enough anymore, and so then you escalate. You start spending more money. But there will always be somebody with more than you, always. So comparing yourself to them is pointless, dude. It is the thief of joy. It creates this finish line that you can never reach. Then at some point, you have to decide what you're actually trying to accomplish in life, right? And not all of this requires a massive conspiracy where these people are twisting their mustaches and sitting around smoking cigars, figuring out how to control you. Right? Some of that, yeah, but not all of it, right? The different institutions, they simply have their own interests. Each human beings run on their own self-interest, right? So just think about like advertisers. They have an easier time selling you things when you feel like there's something missing from your life, right? Or even social media, right? They benefit when they can capture your attention for as long as possible. So everybody can pursue their own interests without coordinating anything, right? So, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, there's always, yeah, I get, there's always something else to buy, to achieve, to fix, to worry about losing. But all that stuff just starts to get quieter once you get comfortable just saying, you know what, I actually don't need that. Right? Just saying no to things, I think, is very important. Um, and there is one question that gets to the heart of this. If nobody could see your life, how much of it would you still choose? Right? I mean, yeah, maybe you keep doing the same work because you genuinely enjoy the work, right? But others, not so much. They're just doing it to impress other people. The same could apply to like relationships, or your opinions, and how you spend your time, right? You can really learn a lot about yourself when you remove the imaginary audience, right? Part of the reason you may feel restless is because you've spent so much of your life chasing a version of success that was just handed to you. You were never, at a young age, you were not old enough to even question it, right? So, yeah, I mean, eventually you may realize that winning the game, it doesn't necessarily give you the life that you thought it would. So, yeah, and you can still care about money and work and relationships and status, or anything else I've talked about here. You just need to know why you care about it, I guess. You just need to know why you care about it. Not I guess, definitely. Because there's a huge difference between choosing something because you genuinely want it and chasing it because you're afraid of what it says about you if you don't have it. Maybe you've spent most of your life trying to get more of what you were told you should want, right? So, but yeah, it's just a better question is what would still matter to you if nobody was watching, right? If nobody was watching, what really matters to you? And once you know the answer to that question, other people have a much harder time deciding what your life should be worth to you. And that is how they start losing leverage.